Hey, you and I have been friends for 15 years, 5 months, and 20 days. That's 135,600 hours, 8,136,000 minutes, or 488,160,000 seconds. Right? I was wondering the other day. You have had to put up with me. And it's been great. I remember being invited to your birthday one year. You had been taking horse riding lessons and wanted a horse riding party. Everyone else got you the usual gifts one would get for an 11-year-old girl. I got you the Death Scythe action figure from Gunnery Mason because I'm new. We used to talk on the phone for hours. I used to call you my human dictionary because you were so smart, you knew the definition for every word I could possibly think of, and I strove to be like you. I studied my vocabulary so that we could have intelligent conversations without me having to ask you what a word meant. You made me better, and thank you for that. You would tell me about a particularly rough day you had in school. You were in the pre-IB program at Robinson, and it was hard work. You didn't care for passing periods and hefting your books everywhere. I would sit there and listen, because I knew. I sat with you once, and we went through a box of old keepsakes from your first love. Your heart had been broken into tiny pieces and then stomped on. It was so bad you couldn't even listen to certain songs without getting upset. For a couple of years I let it be, but after a while I decided it was time to put the past where it belonged. We sifted through a box that had been stored away, and together we picked up the pieces of your heart back out, dusted them off, and put them back where they should have been all along. They were still very fragile, but had begun the process of mending. I decided then that I would protect you always, as though you were one of my sisters, because I knew. As we got older, our interests changed, morphed, diversified, but always we had something in common. I got into Northeast Magnet High School. I told you about the art magnet and how much fun the classes were. You got in the very next year, and finally, we were in the same school together. We could hang out, have classes together, learn together. I got my license and freedom abound. I was able to drive over, stay the night, take us places where our artistic abilities could flourish. We did photo shoots, collaborations on paintings and drawings. We sat in the same room together, each of us on a computer, and wrote stories together through a role-play format. We never did make a book like we planned. There were times that my being able to drive came in handy. There were times when you were sad or upset due to an ex having done something to upset you. And, be the problem big or small, I came over because I knew. One time, when I had my very first car, I had come by to get you. I was going to drive you to the electric chair because you were ready for your 100th ear piercing. We were about halfway there when I changed the channel on the radio because I wanted to find a song to listen to. I passed a song you liked on the radio, but kept going until I found one I liked. This was the day you learned not to touch my radio. We fought back and forth because you wanted to listen to the song you liked, and I said that no, this was my car and my radio. I wanted to listen to my song. After a bit, I said, fine, we will compromise, and I shut the radio off. But you weren't having any of that. You turned it back on, so I did a U-turn and drove you back home. I stopped in front of your house and said, out. You were an only child, a blessing to your parents for sure, but you had no siblings and had not learned to share and compromise. There was no need until I came along. We fought over many more things after that, but we only grew closer because we talked about the problem once we had both cooled down. Sometimes it was my fault, sometimes it was yours, but I stuck it out because I knew. Into every life a little rain must fall. I still remember the day we met He Who Shall Not Be Named. We went to see Darryl, which for those of you who don't know, is a Japanese rock band. And at the end of the concert, we were hoping for autographs. The slime ball was there. Yes, slime ball. I remember my stomach feeling not quite right around him. But he seemed to be nice, and he seemed to be exactly what you were wanting. So I shrugged off my bad feeling because I wanted you to be happy. There were so many times throughout the relationship that I tried to speak up, but it was too late. He had done his evil, and there was not much I could do. So I got quiet, seeped into the shadows, and I watched very closely, because I knew. You called me several times in the middle of the night in tears because of something he had done. He was breaking apart the little pieces of your heart, and they clung together so very fragilely. But the calls became less frequent when he found out what you were doing. Every time he called me, I got mad and lashed out at him. All the work I had done was being undone. I stepped in, tried to find out from him what was going on. As your protector, that was my job. So that he could brainwash you, as your protector, that was my job. He began to isolate you from me and from any of your friends so that he could be right, so that he could brainwash you. But finally one day he did too much and he ended it. It was one of the best days of my life. And everyone who knew him was ecstatic. You were too good for him, and he tried to drag you down to his level because he knew that too. Those who loved you had watched quietly from the side because we knew. When you love hard. You love to the point of blindness. I would never change that about you because when you are with the right person, it is a wonderful thing, and it's part of what makes you who you are. I made you promise me that if I ever tried to warn you of a guy like him in the future, that you would listen. A short time later, you told me about a guy that you liked. You were concerned. It had not been very long since your last breakup. He was a friend, you told me, one that you'd been friends with through the previous catastrophe. You told me about how he had played a bigger part than I realized, and that he had helped and supported you through the sidelines, watching up close what I had not seen. He had helped keep you sane, and that no, it was not your fault. You were not a failure, you were not causing problems, and you were not worthless like he who shall not be named made you feel. This friend that you told me about was named Darryl. Immediately, my big sister instincts kicked in. Who was this person? What were his intentions? Was he a threat to you? I began watching him. Then you told me you wanted to visit him. He was in Utah, though. I demanded safeguards. I demanded his number. I demanded pictures of him next to his license plate of his car. I kicked it into high gear and demanded that you call me every night, and if it was late enough that I was already in bed, you were to leave me a voicemail message to tell me about the day, or about your day, and that you were all right. I wasn't taking any chances, especially because he was too far away for me to beat him up if he hurt you. I would have. I never told you this, but I had the local number of the police programmed into my phone the entire time you were there. And if you failed to check in, I would have called. Because I didn't trust him, not after the last guy. And especially because of the distance. But every time you left me a message, I felt like I got to know him better. Every time you sent me a picture of the two of you, I felt like I got to know him better. Slowly, I began to relax. Slowly, I began to like him. But he still hadn't passed yet. I drilled him on a couple things, asked him questions. He helped you better yourself and gave you motivation to be healthy again, to care about yourself again. You have flourished the short time that you two have been together. You are my fun and happy Kay again. He tells me about how you changed him, made him better. He told me once about how he was really proud of you. He challenged you to be healthy like you wanted. I told him that was all you needed, a reason to care about yourself again. What he said next made me feel much more positive about him. He said, she's totally worth it. Often she doesn't realize how great she is. I thanked him for bringing you back to yourself, and instead of just saying you're welcome and being done with it, he shared more with me. He said, my friends say the same about me. A good relationship goes both ways. A good relationship goes both ways. I sent Darryl a picture of you from when you came to visit me in Wichita. He said, it makes me wonder if looking at a woman the way Dean Winchester looks at Kai is wrong.
That's awesome.
If so, I'm in trouble. Darryl,
That's the best.
you are in trouble for more than okay? You are in trouble because she is a handful. You are in trouble because she is stubborn. You are in trouble because he likes to have everything just so. And you are in trouble because you are absolutely perfect for each other. I wish the two of you many happy years together, and thank you for bringing her back to